here at Viewpoint, WLCN 96.3, 648-5510. If anybody has any comments about the upcoming events at Elkhart. Elkhart is, again, as I say, almost ad nausea, representing the communities around Lincoln that get together periodically and sometimes on an ongoing basis to promote their communities. Mount Pulaski certainly had a huge recognition for their 175th. Well done again by cooperation and help of hundreds of people to get on there and do that job. So let's go more about the first event that you're going to have on the 9th. Is it the 9th? I want to make sure.
The Route 66.
Route 66.
Evening,
right.
yes.
And we will be gathering at Horse Feathers there?
At Horse Feathers, and that is where the dinner is going to be diner-style food, cheeseburgers and French fries and all the fixings, and I think even offering a cherry Coke, if I recall what the menu was. Very fun evening and kind of a light overview. We're not going into great depth on the history of Route 66, which could, of course, fill an evening all by itself, because we have this marvelous quartet that is going to entertain us. So this is more dinner and song than dinner and lecture.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to me, the Route 66 mystique. You have people every year that work on traveling as much as they can on old Route 66. As we speak today, there will be probably somebody stopping to Palms Cafe who is making that trek. Gene has volunteered often at the Lincoln College Museum, and there are people who drop in there all the time who are on that trek. That's an interesting mystique.
Oh, yes. And one of the things at Horse Feathers that I think provides a service, actually, is their sign-up book. They have a place for people to sign in and say where they're from and the date, what their purpose is, and what have you. There have been over 28 different countries around the world.
That's interesting, yeah.
That have stopped in Elkhart and signed that book. Now, there are obviously more people than that who didn't even stop that have gone down 66. And I think there were over 43 states of the United States who have signed in. And I think that is really interesting when you think, oh, well, you know, little Elkhart, all 450 population.
42 states out of 57? Isn't that what the president said?
57 or 58, but who's counting, you know.
I had a chance to see the guest book that the Edwards had at the Pig Hip in Broadwell. And you're right, they were the same folks, I'm sure, who were venturing on their way to Elkhart, and it was the 7 continents.
Right.
It's just, it's amazing.
There are motorcycle clubs from places like Sweden and Germany that were shipping their bikes to Chicago.
Think of that.
And they were getting on Route 66 in Chicago and
all the way to L.A.
Heading south.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
We met a group of Norwegians in Atlanta one day, having their picture taken by the tall man with the hot dog. And they were on their way to Broadwell and Elkhart, too. Sure.
Right. It's great fun.
It is.
And, of course, one of the fun, I think, things you normally don't expect to hear somebody speaking a foreign language.
You know.
And to that, and there have been people, of course, Peter Niehaus happens to be multilingual.
He certainly is.
And just the other day started speaking French to one of our missionaries who had stopped at our church on Sunday, who had just come up from Haiti. Well, French is one of the languages of Haiti. And there they were, just conversing like they'd known each other for years, and I guess once you know a language fluently, it's right there someplace. Wouldn't be
I don't know
someplace
about
in
that.
my mind.
Mine disappeared, I tell you.
Yeah.
You know, we mentioned Broadwell a while ago, and Ernie, you remember the great columnist Mike Royko, who was just an outstanding writer. And he stopped in at Ernie's one time, and they were talking baseball and so forth. And so Ernie made a disparaging remark about some baseball player. And so Royko, who came from around here, and Royko gets back and he writes this column in the Chicago Tribune, and he talked about stopping at the pig hip and run by an old coot. So, so we, from that day on, we called Ernie Edwards the old coot.
Old coot, yeah. Yeah, those things have a way of sticking, don't they?
Oh, yes.
Before we came in here, you were talking about, I hate to do this to you, but I just want to go back to the history part for a minute.
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
You're 51% owner of this show.
You were talking about the river, and I remember having read about that at one point and thought that was so interesting. Would you, and about the Indians and their sighting from Elkhart Hill up to the fort at Peoria and so forth. Could you kind of go over that? I know
She wasn't there.
No, but her grandparents maybe were, great-grandparents.
Well, one of the, and this is one of the many things that the Historical Society happens to be working on this year, is Edward's Trace.
Yes.
Edward's Trace will be the feature of our 2012 calendar, because it is, in fact, the 200th anniversary of the expedition, Ninian Edwards' expedition against the Indians, and that is where Edward's Trace's name came from. The trace had already for a millennium been in place and been a fairly highly trafficked trade route between the native tribes. And when Ninian Edwards used it to go fight the Native Americans, it was then named for him, but it connected Cahokia with Fort Clark, which is now Peoria. Very fascinating history there, and a tremendous amount of relics and artifacts that have been found in the Elkhart area by a variety of different collectors that support a tremendous civilization of Native Americans long before any kind of European immigration began. Just amazing. And I'm not sure people realize that we're talking about going back thousands of years, to when the pyramids were being built in Egypt. We had very successful, highly developed civilizations in operation right here.
We don't think about that, do we? It's, I guess that kind of goes back to the part about a prophet is without honor in his own country.
That's right.
I think.
That's right.
Well, it's kind of too bad you have to get old to appreciate history.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. As a younger, particularly in my education days, in formal education school, you went through history because, well, you had to do it.
One of the most eye-opening books I have read, and it is quite a thick volume, is 1491, the year presumably before Columbus arrived, and it talks about it talks about the whole Western Hemisphere and this tremendous network of civilizations that were in existence. And the majority, it sounds to me as though the majority of them died of the incoming epidemics of disease, which none of them were exposed to ever before. And so when the disease arrived with the Spanish conquistadors and whatever, it literally wiped out close to 3/4 of the population. And when you think in terms like that, you're thinking about hundreds of thousands of people that died. I mean, just amazing.
It made the bubonic plague look like child's play, didn't it?
Exactly.
Well, you know, in that day, communication was pretty doggone slow. Today, we have instant communication. For instance, we were inside the Gaddafi compound yesterday, immediately, as the rebels were. It made an incredible impact on knowledge and power as far as...
And the stock market, but who's looking?
Well, I don't
Maybe
think...
we won't talk about that. It's so early in the morning for such a downer.
Go there.
I don't think we're going to make an impact where that needle's going to swing an iota if we talk about it at all, so we won't do that. Again, let's go back to Bob and Lynn's generous hosting on your musicale. That's going to be kind of a quasi-formal event. Not to say that you need to dress anything less than casual. We want to emphasize that.
Country casual and smart shoes. Because this is going to be on a lawn. We don't want anybody in high heels trying to negotiate.
Now, your musicians, they come from where, please?
It is the Heritage Quartet, and actually the person that we are in best contact with is Jean Tweet, who runs one of the shops on Main Street in Elkhart called Birdsong. And it is a delightful shop and has a variety of vintage clothes and antiques, books, and Jean and her quartet will be performing that night. She was originally associated with the Illinois Symphony, I believe.
Yeah, I was kind of out of sync with them when they let Karen Lynn Deal go. I thought that was a bad deal. I thought she was an outstanding conductress.
Yes.
And well, anyway, they're running that show.
The other, well, by the way, Jean does teach violin, and Carmen Tetkoff, I'm going to probably destroy these names, plays violin, Karen Frost, viola, and Susan Phillips, cello, which is the ensemble that will be performing the Heritage Quartet, string quartet.
And again, those who will be participating in that want to go to the across from the Village Hall to the parking lot there,
Right.
to be transported up there. Do not please try to drive your car up there, because it will create a lot of problems.
Well, and at this particular moment, a lot of dust, which is part of who knows what we will have by then. But right now it's very dusty, and there really are not any provisions for parking up on the hill. So we are going to transport.
Well, that'll be a fun part of it, though.
Oh, yes.
That'll be a nice part of the whole package.
Absolutely. And we're hoping this turns into an annual event. And so this is kind of our... We're gonna...
It's your maiden voyage, isn't it?
Yes. And we're hoping that it goes... it turns out to be as good as we envision it.
Well, with all the planning and all the work you've done, I have no doubt but what it will be a lovely evening.
Thank you very much.
Main Street again. Let's go back to your Main Street.
All right.
Taking it from the top, as they say in showbiz. Move down the street and tell us the various little entrepreneurs that are showing their wares and efforts on Main Street.
Well, we have a hometown realty run by Dana Hudson. We have, a beauty shop, the Hair Hut, of course, the Village Hall. We have Bill Cosby, who runs Richardson's Simplicity Mowers, of course, Horse Feathers, and the Little Foxes, and the Wild Hair Cafe, which are actually kind of an amalgamated, I don't know what you would call it, complex, all kind of going through just Horse Feathers' door there. Across the street, the Blue Moon Saloon. Next to that is a fabulous business opportunity for somebody who is looking for a completely restored building. Does this sound like an advertisement?
Just a tad.
Since you own the building, we'll make a pass on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just call me. It is available. Next to me on the street is the Blue Stem Bake Shop. And it has some of the most delectable baked goods you can. Well, I can't anymore, but
is that open on a daily basis?
I think her hours now are Friday through Sunday. She does a lot of baking for the farmers markets in Springfield and is very, very popular. And then, as I mentioned before, Jean Tweet and the Bird Song Shop. And next to that is the Talk of the Town restaurant. And they serve lunch. I believe they are open Monday through Saturday. I'm not real positive on their hours, but they do a luncheon special through the week. Very popular. And I believe Wednesday's fried chicken dinner and Friday's fish dinner.
You know, if memory serves me, and I might add hastily that certainly that doesn't seem to be the case in all instances, but...
Oh, the memory part. Yes, I got it.
They had a restaurant right there right on the corner of Route 66. It was became a filling station right there, and Shirley Temple ate there as a youngster.
The house by the side of the road
and
restaurant.
They put a ribbon around that table so nobody would sit there.
There were only 4 tables in the restaurant, and the one that Shirley Temple sat in 1938 when they cordoned it off and didn't let anybody sit there anymore. They had lost 1/4 of their seating capabilities. So, but it was a wonderful thing. She was on her way to a debut in Chicago of whatever the movie was that came out in 1938, which I can't remember that one. You can, but I can't.
Well, we've reached that point in time where we have to come up with a closing statement for Viewpoint. And this might be apropos of what goes on down in Elkhart and the other small communities we have around here, including our own, by the way, of Lincoln. And old Tom Jefferson, who was a great source for quotes, said, "I am a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work for it, the more I have of it." Thank you for Viewpoint.